What's going on YouTube? NorthStarCEDH back again with a top 10 tournament update. I have someone new, well, somewhat new. May or may not have seen him on recording before, but not with us for a top 10, top 16 tournament order. It's Erik, also known as the better Tallion Pilot.
True.
You want to start
Yeah.
right off, go right into Brian with Tivit on 10th place. Brian
Yeah, word.
is one of them from the St. Cloud era, which I'm super excited that he came out to the Sea of Dreams 3K. The guys from the St. Cloud store that we've been helping getting into CDH, working on this list. So the fact that he did so well, I'm super happy about. And the fact that he's still on Tivit.
Tivit's putting in work right now. Tivit's like a pretty solid place to be post banning. Like looking at his list, there's a couple spicers. Piece of tech that a lot of Tivits have waffled around on is Containment Priest. He opted into that one for this list. First of all, for Tivit in general, hitting that like control sweet spot in the format right now is kind of nice.
Right.
Since it's slowed, everything like slowed down a little bit, but nothing crazy. So you still get pretty huge value out of all of your engines. But a deck like Tivit has like maybe a turn and a half more to set up before people start going a lot of the time, which is super helpful.
Oh, for sure.
So the ability, yeah, the ability to fall to just be a control deck and then fall back on a 2-card win with half of it in your command zone once the game is at a point that you feel confident doing it. Super potent.
Oh, for sure. I love that he went with Grand Arbiter, which may or may not have been the influence for Grand Arbiter.
Word. I agree. I think Grand Arbiter fits into Tivit very well. I've seen it thrown around once or twice in the 4-drop slot because the 4 slot has like a couple flex locations, like a couple flex options.
So another spicy
The
one that I'm gonna point out right away is Thraben Charm. This is one that
Oh, there it is.
he was really adamant on keeping, even though clearly it did help for him.
Yeah. I mean, 2 mana, I'm not gonna lie, 2 mana 1-off graveyard hate in this format isn't my favorite.
No.
It hits everyone, which is nice, but a card like Grafter's Cage or Weathered Runestone
I say
kind of does that same effect, but continuous, or
right.
even like Rest in Peace. Like,
I,
there's a bunch of
it's
things that do that job forever.
right. It's just the utility of it, though. Like either gonna hit the enchantment or deal damage to a target creature. More than likely, the whole exile the graveyard. We have stuff. I don't feel like that's gonna be the choice, as we have Cage, Soul Cauldrons in here, Curse Totem.
That's spicy.
But the
I didn't
next,
see that Soul Cauldron in the first place.
yeah,
Hmm.
another one that I really do like. It's more of a gotcha card. Is Angel's Grace.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's super cute. In this deck, it's mostly gonna hose Thassa's Oracle wins from your opponents,
Yep.
which is like super cute, and it puts you in a really good position post resolution.
Right.
I love Angel's Grace if you can slot it in decks that are also on Adnos, because then it has like a multifaceted function. You can
Right.
Nas your deck, or you can counter someone's Thoracle.
I was gonna say,
Um,
speaking of Nas, it's not in Tivit anymore, which I think
nope.
is the correct play, because
Yeah.
we don't really get the turn 2 Tivits anymore. Like, you know,
Mm-mm.
pre-ban of like, well, guys, I just have a turn 2 Tivit. I'm just gonna slam it, and we're gonna go from there.
Yeah.
Now
Correct.
it's where I think Tivit really like is going to shine as far as being this control-y game plan, and we've locked down the game enough to where our opponents can't really do much. All right, we're just going to slam Tivit. Do you got a response for it? No. All right, how about my Time Sieve? You got a response for that one? No. All right, we're just going to win.
Yeah.
So
Yep. The incidental win option out of Tivit is definitely the appeal.
right.
Um, there's a bunch of like, I just shouldn't say a bunch. You have a few options for Esper if you want to do control things, but If you're trying to be hard control, this is probably your best option because I'm, you know, I don't want to say best. There's a bunch. You can argue whatever you want,
Right.
but has a lot of options to it, a lot of versatility, and you can take the deck list in like a good number of directions. It can be a little more creature stack focused, like this one is, with like Boromir, Containment Priest, Dothy Voidwalker, Grand Arbiter, Tallion. Which notable, didn't say this before. Slotting Grand Arbiter and Tallion doesn't happen very often. It's normally one or the other in lists that I've seen in the past. So a little greedier. Don't hate it, just a little on the greedier end.
Still has kitten combo.
Yeah, Kitten Cat is, I
Yeah.
mean, the Fairy Cat, very classic. And if you're playing a slower deck anyway, that's trying to kind of accrue mana, it
Right.
doesn't hurt. And with the cat, you always kind of have to evaluate on what does it do outside of the cat fairy line. And in this deck, it's Flicker Tivit. If every non-creature spell you're casting just says make 2 treasures, make 2 clue, make 3 clues, that's a pretty good non-creature spell.
Right. If you don't have a mana rock, you can always just flicker Tivit and
Mm-hmm.
produce a mana advantage, generally
Correct.
speaking.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's good. The list hot. List is hot. Super stoked that he cracked the top 10 with it.
oh yeah, I'm super
Hopefully he keeps
excited.
showing up.
Right. All right. The next one that I have PTSD from because of Matt Sissay.
Let him cook, dude.
Yeah, I don't.
What's your problem with Sissay? Sissay's a heater.
Sissay wins out of nowhere.
Yes and no.
There is some setup required, but
Mm-hmm.
if unchecked, Sissay can be like, all right, I'm just gonna go for the win and win.
Correct. That's super true.
Like Sissay has no problem sitting back and letting the rest of the table more or less fight it out,
Mm-hmm.
and you know answer each other because it's 5 color deck. It's not gonna have all of the counter spells to be like, yes, it's gonna have like, we got Force of Will, Fierce Guardian Ship, Mind Break Trap, all the staples. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more of, all right, I'm gonna try to do stuff. Are you okay with this? Yeah, sure, whatever. You can have, a Derevi. I don't really care. All right, now we're gonna do more stuff and we're gonna go do stuff and present a win. Crap.
Yeah.
We don't have,
Oh, bummer.
I don't have anything left because we just
Yep.
stopped player 2 from winning, or Sissay's winning
Yeah,
on top of a win attempt.
that's correct. That's super true.
Hence,
Um,
hence why I have a thing for Sissay.
PTSD.
Yes.
That's valid. I'm not. I'm not personally a Sissay pilot, but my one of my super close friends and testing buddies, Nick Shalene. He has a finish with you guys, so pretty easy to find his stuff somewhere if wanted. But he religiously plays this deck.
I was
I
gonna
know that
say, like, Nick is like our best Sissay
he's one of
pilot
the
in the
he's
area.
one of the better. Yes, he's one of like 2 to 4 constant Sissay pilots in our local space. And I think he's the most consistent on it. So some like insight on this current list from Matt, because I know he and Nick also talk about this list a lot. They bounce ideas back and forth. We in our local space are pretty high on the Dahada line. So I guess some things that are some standouts, because Sissay is like good soup. It's good soup with a legendary spin. So there's a bunch of things in here that are just going to kind of be ubiquitous, and look fine. But the notable things, Nicol Bolas lines, which are in basically every list. The Hada lines are not in every list. The Hada line involves the Hada, Finder of Wills, the Mardu one, Cultist of the Absolute, which is a 1 black enchantment that gives your commander +3/+3. Um, and that's the important text on it. there's a downside of having to sacrifice, of like your commander gains the text if you have to sacrifice a creature at your upkeep, so you can't just have it out for fun. But if you're in your combo, then it goes. Dahada, Cultist of the Absolute, and Chromatic Ori. Combo's a little convoluted, but you need, if I remember correctly, I think your base requirement is 6 mana. So I'm pretty sure the line is activate. You have 6 mana available to you with your, like, going into your turn. So at the end of your opponent's turn, activate Sissay, get Cultist of the Absolute, and then get into your turn. Did I already mess up explaining this? I might have.
Mm-hmm.
I did. That's
Did.
on me. I did. It's on your own turn. You activate get Cultist, then no, I wasn't wrong. I was right. You just need a mana dork. So you need Sissay plus a dork equaling 6 mana. The dork can be part of the 6 mana. It can be 1 mana dork. It doesn't matter. You just need sack fodder in your upkeep. So end step, end of your opponent's turn, activate, get Cultist, gets to your turn, you float a mana, sack your dork, activate Sissay. Sissay now tutors for 6. Off of your tutor for 6, 6. Off of your tutor for 6, you get the Hada. So now you're at 1 mana available. Get to your main phase, you down tick the Hada. You pray to God you don't hit your Chromatic Orrery. And then as long as you don't hit the 1 card in your deck in 4 cards milled, that matters for this. You again have 5 mana. And off of that 5 mana, Sissay is now a 8/8. So you can activate her to go and grab Chromatic Ori, which then gets another Sissay activation and goes and grabs whatever you want. Derevi is the best option, or like the most straightforward option, because then you activate, you like up down your Chromatic Ori, go again.
Yep.
And that's the Dahada line. It adds a bit of explosiveness to the deck that the deck otherwise doesn't always have, especially with the banning of Dockside. Because that kind of just like leveled this deck and made it have to play a little more fair. The most common way to win is just like with a rainbow dork, like with a multicolored dork going into your turn. That's like kind of the big red flag for Sissay.
Right.
You see that they're gonna untap with like a Fabro Elder or a Bloom Tender or a Sylvala, any of that stuff. That's your red flag of I'm probably gonna lose.
Oh, for sure. That's why I love Curse Totem.
Yeah, Curse Totem banger. Once we get to my deck, I'll talk about it to a decent degree because that card is so good.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Curse Totem, I put in any deck that I can because of Sissay.
Yes. Yeah. It hits, small tangent. It hits Sissay, it hits Kinnan. Let's look at the other top decks, like top of our field. Unironically, it doesn't hit like too much. Oh no, that's a lie. It's Magda. Kinnan, Sissay, Magda. In our local meta, that is a chunk.
Yeah.
It's not everything, but it's a good chunk. So in our local space, it's very good. And then like the space as a whole, it got much better post-ban because people have to rely a little bit more on mana dorks now rather than like your artifact mana.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not like wildly swung, like it's nothing crazy because Bowmaster still exists. But you see people falling, you see people falling back on dorks more.
Right.
One thing that I do want to point out in Matt's list super quick, a couple notable flex slots of just like things. He has fully integrated Jolly Balloon Man as a haste enabler, because it can kind of, like, you can go play a Rainbow Dork, get one tutor off with Sissay, table goes, oh, that doesn't matter. He can't make mana right now. Get Jolly Balloon Man, all of a sudden you have a hasty Rainbow Dork, and you're dead. Marvin, the Murderous Mimic, similar effect. Giving any like gaining any of those abilities is pretty crazy. Chainer is in this list. Chainer isn't always in the lists, but having some recursion is pretty good. And then Gigantha as part of the 99. Also not auto include, but just redundancy. And then I think the last one that's unique is Flowering of the White Tree. Again, all of these cards are things that show up in Sissay intermittently, but they're not like auto locks. Like they're not part of the core. They're part of the like dealer's choice.
Yeah, the flex slots.
Matt's dealer's choice. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And those are Matt's choice flex slots, and it paid off. My semifinals game versus him was very competitive, and he played great. I play with him a lot, so I'm super proud of his like result here.
All right, so let's go to the next one. We got Kai on Kinnan, which Kai is a individual who I believe this was his first CDH event. So, pumped that he came up.
I think I've seen him at one thing before. I know that Nick said he played against him, but I think it might have been the first one hosted by you, so super stoked. Happy to see him.
Right, happy. Well, if this wasn't his first, happy to see him back, and happy to see him doing very well. So,
me too.
But one of now the more common ones that we're gonna see post ban is Kinnan. Unfortunately, Kinnan's just good.
True. Didn't lose a lot with the ban, and just kind of maintained.
Right.
Maintain strength, and when other things go down, you go up, sort of deal.
A new include that is kind of spicy, I think, is Bridgeworks Battle. Just the fact that it fights. You get to fight a creature. So I think that one's super cool.
Yeah. Looks like he's slotting Battle and Sink into Stupor as his two MDFCs, like his two flip ones. I know sometimes you see Seagate Restoration in this pile as well. But yeah, I think Bridgework Battle probably, again, we're not talking to him. I don't know how much it showed up.
Right.
But with a more creature-oriented meta space, having just one more optional removal spell is pretty good.
Right.
I have no complaints with that.
One that I'm not really too fond of in his list is Glen Alarndra.
Why?
4 mana, 2/2 flyer, sack it, counter target non-creature spell. There's a lot to invest in it. Like, yeah, sure. If you hit it off Kinnan, it's not the worst. But I still think there's better options.
That's fair. I kind of have the opposite opinion. I think, which to be fair, both are valid, and I want to make it clear that I'm not a Kinnan pilot regularly. I play this deck like intermittently in pickups, because it's a straightforward enough deck to pick up and pilot, as has been stated a lot of places on the internet by a lot of content creators. It's a hard deck to master because there's like a fair bit of like nuance to it and table talk to it that I can't quite seem to get my head around. Because for me, whenever I play the deck, I always feel like I look the scariest. Like, even if I can't do too much, I still look very scary, and everyone else thinks so too. So you just kind of, I feel
Right.
like I kind of get hated out very quick.
One thing I do
Uh,
think that people tend to do with Kinnan is more or less overextend in the early turns as far as, all right, let's slam Kinnan as soon as possible. And again, I'm not a Kinnan pilot, uh, but that's where I think the biggest concern comes. More or less, I think you want to get your dorks out sooner. That way you can have the extra mana when you're ready to do Kinnan stuff, or when you're ready to, slam a Nyx Bloom on like turn 4 or sooner. You know,
yeah,
get a Void Winter, get a Consecrated Sphinx, Nezahal. Nezahal is silly.
Hall's very good. Basically everything basically everything in this deck fills a very important slot. I think to your extent of like Dork good, I really like the inclusion of Enduring Vitality.
Mm-hmm.
New card from the new set. The ability to make everything a mana dork ubiquitously is very potent, and the fact that it sticks around, like it's a sticky body, is
Mm-hmm.
also very nice.
I think it's
Um,
gas.
I think it's like, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say an auto include in the deck, because again, I'm not a Kinnan pilot. I don't know every nuance. Um, but it seems like it's a very clean Kinnan slot, as far as I can tell. Looking at list, one of the other things that kind of stands out is Valley Flood Caller. I know not every Kinnan is on it because it doesn't always enable, like, you don't always care about the effect of Flood Caller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like it personally. I like the versatility it allows. I like that you can hit it off of a Kinnan flip, and then do more. I like that you can play it out at the end of your opponent's turn when more people are, like, not end of opponent's turn. You can play it out on top of someone else's win attempt after people have used their resources
Right.
to stop it, and then slam your own win. I like that a lot because, like, it just adds a good amount of versatility, which the deck, I'm not going to say didn't have before, because it did.
Right.
Um, but an extra layer is very nice.
Right, and that's what I was gonna
Um,
get add on to the flood color is that we scroll down, we can instant speed a basalt monolith, we can mirage mirror, trinisphere, the one ring. There's so much versatility that it does bring. Yes, granted that it doesn't, we're more creature focused, so it's not kind of a feel bad, but at the same time as instant speed basalt monolith, on top of a counter war does feel really good.
yeah,
So,
or instant speed, like any of your two field tutors.
right.
Same shtick. Finale, Green Suns, whatever.
Speaking
Um,
of Flash, I do want to highlight one card that is
is it
ridiculous.
Amphibian Downpour?
It is. It is. This thing is
Yep.
ridiculous. I know I'm it's not very common to see it, but
Mm-hmm.
it is disgusting when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Um,
big
a
fan.
lot of the time, yeah, I agree. Um, it's a slot that it's a card that I struggle to fit into a lot of decks I'm throwing together. I think that Kinnan is one of those spots where it might shine most because since you're blue green, your access to removal is a little more limited than any other color pairing. Um, so having a, it's not a board wipe, but a board effect, a multi-target board clear
Right.
effect, other than Sight Rift in this color pair is very handy sometimes. So I don't
I
hate the include. I kind of like the include.
Right. I
Um,
do think
I
Psych
hope it worked
Rift
well.
is very good in Kinnan, as you are able to generate the 7 mana to overload Psych Rift fairly easy.
True. That's correct.
At least easier than other decks. And that's why I think Psych Rift is going to fall in popularity. Like, yes, it's still a very good card. I'm not saying that it's not. But not many decks can abuse Psych Rift like Kinnan can.
That's true. That's true. It's the best Psych Rift deck in the format, probably, but I don't think Psych Rift's going anywhere. No. It's still the same versatile effect, but this is definitely the deck that makes use of it the best. But yeah, I don't really see too many other heaters in here. Seems like a pretty standard adjacent Kinnan list, and I'm super happy that he did well with it. I think it was very pleasant to play against in the semis. No complaints.
Right.
Inalla, I'm gonna be so real with you. This is probably one of the decks, and this is one of the few decks in the format that I don't have a great knowledge of, outside of the fact that it's a Grixis pile. Yeah. So it's gonna do your standard Grixis pile things.
Same.
With a spin of you wizard.
Well, right. It's your wizards are your tutors. So like,
yeah,
Vidalcan Aether Mage, you're getting Thassa.
Yeah, you're getting Thassa, or you're getting Scholar of Ages. You're getting either piece, which is right. Very nice.
Like if you don't
or
have
Spellseeker.
Right, if you got Vidalcan and you got Thassa in hand, you're gonna grab Spellseeker, so you can grab your, where is it? Tainted Pact. Right. We can grab Demonic Consultation. Yeah, 2 or less. So we're gonna grab a Demonic Consultation. It's just utility, is what this deck is. It's Grixis Pile, arguably the best color combination, even though some people are gonna say Kinnan is better, but we're not gonna talk about those people. We can mention those in the coming up one. But Grixis Pile does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on this deck because I don't fully understand all the lines. Looking like at a quick glance, just trying to learn the deck in 2 seconds. I do know that you have a lot of like flicker lines between Scholar and Spellseeker because you double up your ETB on Scholar, so you can just like grab something that makes mana, grab something that flickers Scholar. Boom.
Well, to get out some of the other normal Grixis Pile lines, we have Intuition lines for Underworld Breach, the typical Ristic Mystic, Final Fortune to go and win at, basically instant speed. Misdirection's kind of a spicy one. A couple of Reanimators. Because we have Entomb, so therefore we can use the Entomb lines for Thoracle.
Thoracle, your Scholar of the Ages.
Right. Step Through is just another wizard cycling. If we're actually casting it, there's a problem at that point. Like, we have so many other ways, better ways than Step Through, and if there's that much interaction, then it's just one of those grindier games. Lively Dirge, if I'm pronouncing that right.
I love that card.
I'm pretty sure I just murdered it. The pronunciation of it.
Lively Dirge.
Yeah.
There we go. Lively Dirge is a great one.
Right. Just more utility.
A lot of decks.
No. But yeah, no, it's just more redundancy is all this is.
Yep. 3 mana Entomb, or 3 mana Entomb that you can also say 5 mana Entomb then double Reanimate is absolutely not bad.
Right.
In the decks that it works in, it works really well in. In the decks that it doesn't have a home in, you don't see it. But it's a very good tool for the decks that want it.
Oh, for sure. Another one that I'm a fan of is Blasphemous Act.
Yeah. Notably playing Blasphemous Act over Toxic Deluge.
Yup.
Like Deluge is not here, but B Act is. I'm a little intrigued on that one because we're also not a Nas deck or a Necro deck,
Right.
so we don't have a bunch of effects pressuring our life total.
Right.
So I'm intrigued by this. It doesn't always. It will cost less than Deluge.
No, but well, right.
Most of the time, probably most of the time, when you're actually casting it.
Right.
So interesting. I'm going to trust a pilot that knows more about the deck than I do, and say that it's probably the right call. Maybe. Maybe it's not. Yell at me in the comments.
Right. Well, I'm sure we'll get criticized for something. So.
Yeah, come on. Inalla pilots.
Right. So yeah.
Come at me.
I'm super excited that he did well. Super excited to see this list. Excited to feature this list. More importantly.
Me too. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hopefully he keeps showing up and hopefully he keeps bringing this.
Right. All right. Now the inevitable.
All right, we can skip this one. We can skip him.
I mean,
no, that's it. I'm kidding. Ethan's wonderful. He's a great pilot. He's such a good pilot, some might say.
You mean Mr. Consistent?
Yeah, Mr. Consistent.
He
was inconsistent here, though. He did not top 4.
Well, I blame you for that one.
Nah, I wasn't even in his pod.
I still blame you.
Okay, got it. It was the intimidation factor. Yeah, no, Ethan did great. I played against him earlier in the day. Wonderful opponent. I have nothing but love. We talk about our decks back and forth a lot, and he's great to brew with.
He did bring it.
He did bring it. He was talking to me before this, and he was going to be on. It was going to be on Roxai, but then pivoted onto this on the drive over, which was super funny. I know that he was talking with. I want to say it was. I don't remember if it was Memo or Wounded. He was talking with one of the notable. He was talking with a notable community member who pilots Kinnan and was stoked on some of their innovation to the list. Which, since we've talked about Kinnan already, I'm kind of just going to skip to the innovation.
Copy enchantment. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Copy enchantment.
Yeah, there's like.
I'm guessing he didn't have steel enchantment, but he had a copy enchantment.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and a couple of the things, dramatic reversals in the instant and sorcery slot, which is cute. I don't know if it's the right call, but it's a call and it's probably not a wrong call. It can net a whole bunch of mana.
Also Mirror Maid.
Yep, like these are the heaters. The heaters are copy artifact, copy enchantment, Mirror Maid. If you think that the meta is going to be very grindy, these are amazing slots. I have these in a lot of my grindier deck slots right now. Work very well. Sometimes they're dead draws, but most of the time, very much not dead draws. And taking your opponent's Vantage Engine and saying, "Me too, please." Especially in like Kinnan, which as a deck kind of struggles with card advantage sometimes, because sometimes you just vomit your hand and say, "All right, please."
Right.
It's very good. Those are innovations here, and they're spicy innovations. I imagine they played out really well for him. I didn't see these in my game against him, but I love these cards theoretically.
All right, John. John on the spicy. Oh my Lanta.
This was a heater.
Oh my Lanta. Oh my.
Yeah, so the way this deck like plays out a lot of the time is you really just like you play all your little idiots, chip in for incidental damage, and try and attack on the front of damage and reanimator simultaneously while applying light stacks to the board. Like Drawn in Inalla, super great light stacks piece. For the same reason that we were talking about Curse Totem being really good earlier. Dothy Voidwalker is in here. Similar shtick. One-sided hate piece. Draenith. Skyclave is a creature body that is a multifaceted removal spell. It came up in my game with him, and it was very relevant. I think it's a solid slot. You don't see it a lot. Deck attacks on multiple axes, and you can kind of see everything it's doing pretty heads up looking at the list.
No, this is super cool.
Yeah, Delny, to what you were saying, is double. So let's say you have reasonably. So if you play Delny and then start attacking with multiple creatures with Raffine, you can just choose to never convene onto Raffine, and then Raffine will double convene every turn because of the Delny trigger. Because Raffine is the trigger going on to whatever creature.
Yep, that is entertaining. I love it.
Yeah, so you could be like cycling 10 cards in and out of your hand in every turn cycle.
And the other thing too, of like, if you have your big dumb thick boys like Elshnorn, Toxtril, whatever, you just dump them with the Connive trigger from Raffine, and then you just bring them back with Reanimate.
We have all the Abdul ones. Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, and Necromancy.
Right, we're doing Abdul lines.
There's no instant win with Abdul, but that's probably fine. Like,
that's the downside with Abdul. There's no instant speed, but
yeah, the hope is always to go to up down your Abdul a bunch and reanimate, and as you're reanimate looping Abdul, be like looping other permanents. So, for instance, if you have an Orcish Bowmaster in play while you're doing this, you kill the table.
Yep.
If you can end on, rather than Abdul, reanimating like a Razaketh or something, then you can use all of your idiots to tutor your deck or per life total. You know what I mean? You can just be up downing your Skyclave, up downing your Recruiter. You know, so many options. But in a vacuum on its own, Abdul plus a reanimation enchantment doesn't win, which is the downside.
Right, but still, it's...
But no. Great combo, and the deck's hot.
This is insane.
I want him to keep playing this. I want to keep seeing this.
I like this list. Like, this is honestly the first time I've seen this list, and the fact that it did this well, I don't want to say like starstruck, but I'm more or less speechless.
It's hot. I want him to play it more. Hopefully he does.
Right? All right, Eric.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, we have Erik, also known as the better Tallion player. Go ahead, take it.
I will take it. So, there's not a lot to... I guess there is a lot to say about Tallion. I was going to say there's not a lot. That's a lie. Tallion slots into the meta in a really cool spot right now, where you kind of like... Everything's slowed down, so it is much easier to establish an engine before other people start going, a lot of the time, which is at its core what Tallion or any control deck is trying to do. The upside of playing Tallion over another control deck option is you have access to that advantage engine always. You can keep hands on the basis of generate mana, play my commander, go. You can keep hands that just like, or you can keep hands that say Mystic Remora, some other incidental stuff, go. So it turns your keep criteria into like a much wider range than a lot of control-centric decks have. And you're still in two of the colors that control the best. The deck also attacks on like an axis that not a lot of people are ready for. The attrition life total plan. You'll have a non-zero amount of games where you attack people to death. And that's how it works. Some notable cards in the deck that are staples that I'll point out. Children of the Apocalypse plays to that life total effect. Most lists play one wheel effect, whether it be Windfall or Wheel or Time Twister. In the past, I haven't kept up with a lot of the Tallion Discord recently. I'm not gonna lie, because I felt like a lot of the conversations just were circular, and it's exhausting. So I did it. But I know for a long time there was back and forth on it. Downside of Windfall, you feed opponents' graveyards, and sometimes it's bad. Like sometimes you have a Windfall for 4, and you say, "Well, this sucks." And sometimes you can't win, and you Windfall and you feed someone else's Breach. But other times you Windfall and you drain each opponent for like 25 because. Like 25, 26, because you have a Shieldred in play, or you have a Bowmaster in play, or you have one of the other namesakes of the deck, Bloodchief's Ascension. Bloodchief's Ascension is a staple in the list because you trigger it with Tallion super easily, like 2 damage, trigger off of Tallion, ramp your BCA up, and then you're draining the table every time they're doing anything. Windfall Field feeds your Shieldred lines better. Time Twister, like Windfall fuels your Shieldred, OBM.
So not only that, but you run Cage in your list. So
yes, correct. I'm on a relatively one-sided stacks heavy variant on this list. I'm not playing everything. Like some decks are playing Rug of Smothering for that like life total drain effect. Some decks are playing Dampening Sphere. Another like generally one-sided stacks effect.
You're also on Counterbalance too.
Yeah, we're one of the best counterbalance decks in the format because part of the downside of counterbalance is if you can't reset the top part of your deck, then your opponents always know what to play against. With Italian, it's constantly changing. Like you have a way to reset it all the time, so your opponents always have to blind cast into it and pray. Which the fear factor of counterbalance, the unknown is the power of counterbalance. Like sometimes you'll snipe someone's gas and you say, "I'm a genius. My card's insane," and you got so scammed. But a lot of times people just sit and do nothing.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, have you tried Sissay's top in this list?
Yes. That's something that people have been, when the deck was kind of like coming about in the first place, people were back and forth on a lot. The consensus, which I agree with, is that it's not worth it. Like, yeah, you can control the top, but you only really want Sissay's Divining Top when you have to balance out. And outside of then, it's 1 mana, kind of do nothing relative to other cards in the format. Like, the impact is not that high for 1 mana to play it, and then 1 mana to do the thing, to like look at your 3. And it's never a card positive card. It's always a card neutral.
Well,
which is not where you want to be.
Not only that, but it can become mana intensive.
Correct. Which isn't what we're going for. I think a couple, like 3 more pieces to point out. Not 3, a couple more pieces to point out here. Steel Enchantment, really powerful for the reasons that we talked about with Copy Enchantment and Mirror Maid. But this one has the I take it. Like, it's mine now. You don't have it.
Right.
And for 2 mana, it's very potent. Weathered Runestone is a heater in so many matchups. We were talking about Sissay, Magda, Kinnan. Poses all of those for the exact same reason that Curse Totem, not the exact same, but function that Curse Totem has. In addition to that, it hits graveyards. It has Grafter's Cage text. So it shuts down breach lines. It shuts down creature tutors from the library. Finale, Devastation, Greenstone, Zenith, Yada. Runestone, Curse Totem, Grafter's Cage, all bangers. And yeah, outside of that, the deck is really choose your own adventure. Hullbreaker Horror we play like is one of the main wins, I guess. Even though we don't have an outlet in the command zone, it's still uncounterable loop, and theoretically, not even theoretically, a lot of the time you're going to have something in play that has an ETB effect or a recurable effect that will win you the game, like an Orcish Bowmaster or a One Ring to like constantly tutor, to constantly draw one card, or a Wishclaw Talisman to constantly tutor, whatever. You can choose your own adventure.
One card I do want to ask about: Nuclear Fallout.
Banger.
Banger.
The deck, this card came up as a pivotal piece in 2 of my 6 games. A second option for a second board wipe was remarkably relevant all day long. I shouldn't say all day, but notably long. In your deck, like, the mill function of it isn't always ideal, for the same reason that I talked about Windfall not always being ideal, of fueling opponents' graveyards. And since we don't recur things from our own graveyard, it doesn't really advantage us too much. But it does have that upside of if you have a Bloodchase Ascension active, you're triggering BCA on your opponents. And it also has the upside of being controllable. If I have a Tallion out and I don't want Tallion to die, I can just pay 1 into the X and kill everything that has 2 toughness while leaving Tallion alive. Similarly to how Toxic Deluge, you can X2 or X3 and Tallion lives. There's a couple cards that people have talked about for this slot in the past. Yahenni's Expertise is a notable one, which is 4 mana, all creatures get -3/-3, and then you can play a spell from your hand with CMC 3 or less without paying the mana value. Also a very potent slot, very reasonable. Nuclear Fallout just has a little more versatility because you can pay more. You can go 4 mana -4/-4. You can go 5 mana -6/-6. You can 7 mana, not 7. I skipped a number. 6 mana -8/-8. And the list goes up. I did cast it for 6 mana, giving things -8/-8 in our finals match, and that almost stabilized the game. So like,
almost.
Almost.
That close.
This close, like 3 times. This might be a little bit of a results-based analysis, and I own that, but the card felt really good all day, and I think being on at least 2 board wipes right now, regardless of what the second board wipe option is in this deck, is important. I guess one other thing that I'm doing is I'm doing Harbinger of the Seas. This was a test slot. I'm still not 100% sold on it. I don't know if it's a perfect card. The thought process was that there are going to be more Blood Moon decks because Magda is more prevalent than it was before.
Yeah.
So I already kind of want to hinge my mana base to be more considerate of that fact. So we may as well slot it in anyway, because you will be able to hose people sometimes. And if your mana base is already 4 basics, like 1 of each, 1 snow of each, 1 standard of each, it's not the biggest opportunity cost. So super big testing slot. I'm not sold on it yet, and it didn't really come up, so not a lot to say. But it's not standard.
All right. Next is Adam.
Next, let's go Adam.
Right.
He goes by Base Bread on the internet. So anybody who is in any of like online circles probably sees his name come up some non-zero amount. Super well known for just religiously playing this deck.
Oh, for sure.
And he's an amazing pilot. He knows the ins and outs of this deck. He knows the fail cases. He knows how bad it can be, and he knows how good it can be. And he will happily talk to that fact, because what you gain in 3 colors, you lose in consistency to the counterpart in Krark Saka. Because this is doing Grixis things plus the Krark Saka thing is what this deck boils down to. And I feel like talking out my ass disingenuously about how to play this deck would be a disservice to this deck. So I'm pretty much going to leave it at that and say he knows more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it does help that he was on the last video, and I basically let him have the glory of explaining the different lines, explaining how this deck works, and I will not butcher that because I will fail to do justice again. My apologies, YouTube. We did the recording with Adam. We featured his deck. He gave a very detailed explanation of it, but we had technical difficulties, and the worst part of it is we recorded this multiple times. But don't worry, I will get Adam back on the channel and he will explain his deck, do a deck tech of it, and hopefully third time's the charm.
Correct.
So,
no, he's great. Wonderful opponent. He had a kind of unlucky hand and kind of unlucky game. He moved down to 3.
yeah, I
brutal.
saw a couple.
He was the last player in the game because he was the least threatening for all game. And he almost got there. If it wasn't for the combination of things that the Kona Pilot managed to throw together, I had multiple instances where I could have won, and so did he. Looking at his hand afterwards, I have a couple things to say about Magda.
Go for it. Start us off.
That's cool. I will. One of my other good friends and play partners and testing buddies is a religious Magda pilot. So I have the fortune and misfortune of dealing with this deck a lot. The lines, very versatile. You have a lot of things you can do in this deck. It's remarkably multifaceted. The TLDR for winning the game is 10 treasures. Magda plus 10 treasures equals Artifact Dwarf plus Clock of Omens. You tap the Artifact Dwarf and the Clock of Omens to the Clock of Omens effect. You untap the Artifact Dwarf, and then all of a sudden you have another treasure over here. Now you have 2 artifacts again. You repeat this loop. You make infinite tap treasure tokens. Eventually, you go and get something else. One of the most common lines right now is grabbing your roaming throne, because then you start making infinite untapped treasure tokens as well. And following that, 2 to your deck. There's a win in there. A lot of it is like stupid loops. Like you can stupid loop Pinnacle Monk with a Lightning Bolt. You can stupid Spine of Ishsaw. You can loop destroy opponent's permanents. This deck's opting for Gel Bertel Gelad Stylus. It's a 1-mana artifact that just has tap, put target permanent you own on the bottom of your library. So you can start sacking your things, tapping that. And then you have various effects that, like your Clock of Omens, that untap it once you have your infinite untapped treasures in addition to your infinite tap treasures. One of the new additions to the deck is Bark Form Harvester, which has that same function. You can put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library for paying 2 life, and it's an artifact. So it's your win con, it's your win artifact, and your loop artifact, and your looper all in one. Wonderful addition to the deck. I know that a lot of Magda pilots are pretty stoked on it. They cleaned up a lot of lines, which is awesome. One of the spicier includes here is Realm Scorch or Hellkite. Throw in Spell Drain card, and when it ETBs, you add 4 mana of any combo of colors, and you can also pay 2 mana into it to have it deal 1 damage to any target.
I was gonna say it's just another outlet for a win.
Correct. It's an outlet. It's a very smooth outlet. It's a very clean outlet.
Right. And I would say that's one thing with learning Magda is learning the line.
Yeah, correct.
Because playing against Magda for the first time, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I know you can, right? You generate infinite treasures. You have a loops where you can generate infinite treasures, and then you basically go and win from there. And I'm like, I'm always confused. But this is like, oh, it's just, you produce your infinite mana, and we're gonna slam a Realm Scorcher, and hey, I have 100 million treasure tokens. I'm just gonna feed them into my Hellkite.
Yeah, correct. So Hellkite makes everything super smooth. I know you also have twin shot sniper loops, which is kind of what I talked about earlier, where you're looping an ETB of a creature. like killing it
Mhm.
to an effect and then looping it repetitively.
Right.
But yeah, the Hellkite makes so buttery, whereas outside of that, it's a little less buttery and a little more crunchy.
I say confusing for non
Yeah,
Magda pilots.
correct. But yeah, it's a staple of the format. I don't think it's going anywhere. A lot of Magda pilots, myself as a Magda watcher frequently, think that the deck actually got better post Dockside ban
Oh,
because
for
you
sure.
don't get punished as hard. Like you don't have as many like I go, I win right now instances, but you were always a stacks deck. You continue to be a stacks deck, and now it's so much harder to punish your like what you're doing. You don't
Right.
have situations where you have to sack all your treasures because an opponent cast Dockside and just put yourself in the hole.
Well, not only that, but with the fast mana gone, you didn't really care about, obviously Jewel Lotus, so there's the turn 1 Magdas, but didn't really need that in the first place. Your Dockside is just a crutch for Magda. It's not really needed.
Yeah. No. The deck's a heater. It will continue to be a heater.
Oh, yeah.
Good job to this guy for being first seed going into the finals, and then
Ian, yeah, here's
new guy.
here's the oddball, the new guy on the
Anytime.
block. This is mono green Stompy. This is
mono green Stompy.
This is, hey, I'm gonna put out a big thick boy, and you guys have to try to do something about it. Hey guys, we have all of the big thick boys.
All the big things.
Not just the main ones of like Wandering Archaic, Kogla, Nyx Bloom. No, we're playing Vaultborn Tyrant.
Lurking Predators.
Galta. It that betrays. The big thing that is
The Great Henge.
Yeah, Lurking Predators. Card is silly. We finally found a deck that can abuse it. And the best part too,
for clarity, a CEDH deck that can abuse it.
Fair. We also have a lot of stacks pieces.
Yeah, no, the deck's a mono green stacks ramp deck. It's doing a lot of things that two of the decks we already talked about. It's doing a lot of things that Magda does in terms of cheating on mana and cheating big stacks pieces into play, like your Portal to Phyrexia, your Godpharaoh statue, and then playing some of the low ball stuff like Static Orb, Winter Orb, Sphere of Resistance, Trinisphere, Null Rod as well, because we're not an artifact activation centric deck. Like we have the package. You have your Chromox, your Mana Ball, your Monolith, your Soul Ring. Like you have the good ones, but you also have like 10 mana door. So you don't really care.
No.
It's fine.
Right.
And who needs to cast spells when Kona puts them into play, you know?
Right. The one time where I was able to catch a little bit of the game was towards the end and last March of the Ents. This is like the one card where like meme to win, however you want to put it, the entertainment factor of this card in this deck.
Yeah. No, the deck gets to play a lot of big, stupid spells that
Giant Ankeg, if I pronounce that right.
What are you looking at?
Giant Ankeg.
Yeah.
Trample, Ward 2. Other creatures you control have Trample and Ward 2.
Yep.
Archetype of Endurance. Creatures you control have Hexproof.
I think the funniest one to me is Blightsteel Colossus.
Right.
Because a lot of this stuff makes sense. Is heaters, is big hits. Like that's what the deck's just going for. You're trying to accelerate into a Kona and turn Kona sideways and go from there. I know in our game, the way that, Kona was second seed and Magda established a turn 2 Tangle Wire. So the table was put in a spot where no one could really do anything for the first like 3-4 turns. So Kona, I think it was turn 4 or 5, something like that, cast Galta Stampede Tyrant for 8 mana and just put Thorn Mammoth, Dawnblade Regent, and I think something else for sure, but those were the big ones because he was able to fight the table, fight the board, and establish the Monarch, which was then card advantage for himself after doing this. But he went on an empty board where his opponents are tapped down, so can't hold up that much interaction. I think we're also under a Trinisphere, so super can't hold up interaction.
Right.
Just slammed the 8 mana threat that put like 20 something power in play. Said pass. Because of how the game worked out, we just couldn't say anything about it. And then following that, he just kind of cascaded his advantage because of the monarchy. And then he established a Great Henge, and then he established Lurking Predators, and then what put the nail in the coffin was a Void Winnower, which couldn't be answered for a turn cycle. And after that turn cycle, when it could be answered, he had a Legolas's Quick Reflexes in hand to protect it. So just the way the game worked out, he was remarkably advantaged, and he capitalized and put us in the dirt. Let's go Burby.
So one thing that I kind of want to see with Kona, just because I think it might be good. Well, then again, I haven't played this deck, but I'm looking for it to see if it's in here. Nope. There it is. Springleaf Drum.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Springleaf is definitely part of what I've seen considered for the deck. I am surprised that he's not playing it. It's probably as a result of like Null Rod and Collector Roof, if I had to guess.
That's the only thing that I could think of, like why it's not in here.
Yeah, thinking about it from before you use Kona, like before it's doing Kona tap stuff, you're just tapping down one of your things that already makes mana, probably, like a Land World or something. So it doesn't do a lot to play Kona. If you have one of your Null Rod effect to play, then it does nothing.
Right.
That's probably the reason. But it does have good upside. Some of the things that have the same effect are also Magda cards in Stronghold Settlement and Survivor's Encampment. Any land that says tap creature make mana of a color has the same effect, and it allows you to capitalize pretty much immediately, which is super cool. More cards that don't see play outside of like these two decks and maybe stuff that I'm not aware of.
I'm gonna say I think we found a home for Smuggler's Surprise. More specifically, the last mode of creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible until on a turn.
True.
To me, that seems.
And also the middle mode is really good.
Right. I think it's really good.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Fits in the list well. This deck's hot. I don't want to see it ever again.
Oh, you.
Deck's hot. I'm sure I will see it again.
This is more than likely not the last time you're going to see
this. Oh, for sure.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all good. It's a fun. I'm happy that something abnormal exists in the format right now.
Right.
The mono green option is very nice. There's nothing else that really impresses me in mono green to the degree that this did after its performance. Not to discredit our like Yisan players or the Marwyn players or any of the mono green like non-deterministic storm stuff but this is probably what's most impressive to me right now.
Right. And I think it shocked a lot of people.
Yeah, the surprise factor was huge.
And I truly think that helped contribute to the win. Congratulations to our top 4. Where first place took home the Underground Sea, and second, third, and fourth all took home cash. Not only that, but we teamed up with a local artist, and the top 4 are taking home custom one-of-a-kind playmats. First place, John, was on Kona. Ian, who's not pictured, was on Magda. Third was Adam, who's on Rogsai. And finally, Erik on Tallion. Our next CEDH event is the Diamond for the Holidays, where first place is taking home a Mox Diamond, and as always, cash payout for the top cut. We'll see you at Highlander Games on December 14th. Check-in is at 11 a.m.